So I've been a Kindle Oasis user now for almost a full year, and this is my favorite e-reader by far. But I've got to say, there's so much hype out there for the Kobo Libra H2O, and I had to get my hands on it and put the two devices head to head. When I finally did that these past couple of weeks, I realized something pretty quickly, and there's a very clear winner, and it's not even close, to be honest. In this video, we're doing a very deep dive review of both devices and seeing which one comes out on top. Hi there, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Maneetpaul Singh. On this channel, we talk about tech and getting things done. If you're already watching this, you know that having an e-reader is an excellent way to get more things done while reading. All right, let's talk about the basics right now. The Kindle Oasis starts at $249 and the Libra H2O starts at $169. Now, very clearly, there's a very big price difference between both devices over here, so that'll make a huge impact on your buying decision. I'm gonna try my best to base this review on strictly functionality and not so much the other parts that drive the price up or down. Now, putting price aside, the Kindle Oasis has way more customization. You can buy an 8GB or 32GB for a higher price, which will allow you to have audiobook support. You also have a black model and a gold model. You also have a cellular model and a Wi-Fi only model. And then lastly, you have the option for ads and no ads. The Kobo ecosystem is way simpler. All you have the option for is black or white in terms of color. There's only one storage capacity of 8GB, and there's no option for cellular or ads or no ads. It's just very straightforward in terms of the configuration. I want to pause here very quick and just really complain about this Kindle ecosystem and the way that they charge for taking ads off the screensaver. It's really confusing for buying a Kindle for the first time. I didn't know what this meant at first, but basically they put ads on the screensaver unless you pay Amazon $20 extra for the privilege of removing the ads. That's my biggest complaint. They don't need that there. Anyway, let's talk about the tech specs regarding both these devices. The Libra H2O has a 1 GHz processor, 512 megabytes of RAM, and a 7-inch display. The Oasis has the same exact thing, except one important difference. It has a dual-core processor. This makes it way faster than any other e-reader that I've used so far. It's not the biggest deal. It's not like you're buying an iPad or something like that. You're buying an e-reader, so you don't really need much speed, but it does have a very noticeable difference when navigating through the menus and changing pages. The Oasis is just much more snappier. Both devices are waterproof, which I find really cool, but the Oasis does have a cellular model like I mentioned earlier, so if you travel a lot, this may be something worth looking into. Now, with that being said, right now, as of making this video, the Kindle cellular model is actually back ordered for 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully that does come back. The next thing I want to talk about is build quality, and I won't spend too much time on this because this is really where the price difference comes in. The Oasis is all aluminum. It's very premium. It's like you're buying an Apple product, whereas the Libra H2O is all plastic. This is clearly how Kobo was able to make a similar device at a cheaper cost. They used a plastic material instead of the aluminum finish, but it really makes a big difference in terms of quality and the premium feel that you get when holding the Oasis. You can't compare it to that. The Libra H2O just feels a lot cheaper in the hand. Now, putting the actual build quality aside, both devices, regardless of plastic or metal, get fingerprints, and that's really annoying. On the H2O, the fingerprints are even more visible on the back with this rubberized textured design. Crumbs get into it. It's really annoying. But on the Oasis, the front is definitely more of a glossy black, and that gets way more fingerprints than the H2O does. One other very small difference that I want to call out is the weight of the device. The Oasis is made out of metal, aluminum, which is much lighter than the plastic. It comes in at 188 grams, whereas the H2O is 192 grams. This is such a small difference, but I did notice it when I was holding both devices, and it does feel a little heavier in the hand when holding the H2O. The next thing I want to talk about are all the buttons on the devices. The Oasis has the best power button of any e-reader that I've ever used. I say that because both the Clara HD and the Paperwhite have power buttons on the bottom, and the Libra H2O has the power button on the back of the device. The Oasis is the only one that has the power button on the top, right where you would expect it to be, so you can easily turn it off and on without having to search for a power button or having to use a second hand. The Libra H2O has a circular power button on the back of the device, and I really wish they simply moved this to the other side of the device on the right side, on the same side where the page turn buttons are, so you can easily turn it off and on when you're holding it. Because it's on the other side, you have to use a second hand all the time to power it on or power it off. It's a really small detail, but it does make a big difference when reading every single day. It gets really annoying. You can't just put the device away. You have to use a second hand to power it off. And then speaking of buttons, the Libra H2O also has the worst page turn buttons I've ever used. I know they saved money by using a plastic design, but I really wish they used the same buttons as the Kindle Oasis. The page turn buttons on the Kindle Oasis are such a pleasant experience. They work really well. They're very clicky. There's no ambiguity of where you have to press them, and they feel really nice to press. But on the Libra H2O, they are so frustrating to use. At first glance, you're probably wondering why in the world this is a big deal, but it's mainly because on the H2O, you have to press the page turn button at the exact right place for it to register your click. You basically have to press the button right in the center, or if you press it too high or too low, it doesn't actually click down. I've had so many times while reading that I pressed the button and the page did not turn and didn't click. I have to completely get out of my zone and press the button several times for it to work. It's really frustrating, and this is the one thing I really wish they had better buttons for. Now moving on to the actual charging port of both the Oasis and the Libra H2O, they both use micro USB, which makes no sense to me. They really should upgrade to USB-C. One interesting thing to note though is the charging port on the Libra is on the side of the device. It's a really interesting place to put a charging port. It has no impact on functionality or anything like that, but it's just a strange place to put a charging port. On the Oasis, it's on the bottom of the device, right where you'd expect it. So that's one small design element that I noticed. Now both devices have a 300 ppi e-reader display, which is really nice. No complaints there regarding the quality or the sharpness of the text. They both look really good. They also both have color temperature controls, which is really handy when reading at night. You can have the warm light come on to make it easier to fall asleep. Now, even though they both have color temperature controls, I will say the Kindle does it a much better way. You have the option of manually adjusting it or also setting it to an automatic schedule based on sunrise or sunset. On the Kobo, the only option you have is based on your bedtime, and I looked it up online. It does this really weird thing where it'll gradually become more and more warm light as the bedtime approaches, but it's not very clear. On the Kindle, it works very similar to how your phone will work. Just put in the times and it'll base it off of that. No ambiguity there. Now, both devices allow you to manually control the brightness, which is very awesome, but they do it in different ways. The Oasis has an ambient light sensor, which is very handy. It'll automatically adjust the brightness based on the lighting conditions around you, whereas on the Libra H2O, there is no automatic light sensor, but it's a very easy shortcut you can use by simply dragging your finger on the left side of the screen up or down. Now both devices allow you to auto rotate when you switch hands, which is really handy. They're both reversible, so you can switch between right hand and left hand reading. But if you want to switch between portrait and landscape mode, you'll have to go to the settings first before the auto rotation will work for that. This is actually a good thing because if you don't have this locked in, it'll just completely rotate every single time you move the device. The sensors in these devices are very sensitive to rotation. When it comes to the software on both the Kobo and the Kindle, there is so much to talk about. I actually have a fully dedicated video just talking about this. It's very clear the Kobo is much more minimalist compared to the Kindle ecosystem. I really enjoy the Kobo software experience more. The books are just very easily located. It's also much cleaner menus for settings. All the things are very easy to find. Whereas on the Kindle, finding certain settings could be really difficult sometimes, and there's just so many options all over the place. I also really enjoy how on the Kobo, you can easily see your activity metrics for reading books right on the device itself, whereas on the Kindle, if you want to see how many books you've read or the number of hours you've read, you have to go to the Kindle app on your phone to see those metrics. Having them on the Kobo right there front and center are very convenient. But two things in software that Kobo does not do very well is the bookstore and Readwise support. If you're in America, the Kindle bookstore cannot be beat, but if you're in other countries, the Kobo bookstore might be better for you. And then secondly, Readwise support is an app that I use to track all my highlights on the Kindle. Kobo does not integrate with Readwise, so if you make highlights a lot while reading, you're going to miss out on Readwise, which is an amazing app for tracking all your highlights and integrating them to apps like Notion or your email. Now, at the start of the video, I didn't mention how there's a big price difference between the two devices, so I won't let that really impact my review over here. The Kindle obviously has a better build quality. It feels so much more premium, but you're paying for that at a higher cost. If all you care about is a larger screen and having some page turn buttons, the Kobo does an amazing job at a much lower price point. But again, I don't think they do a very good job in executing it. The page turn buttons aren't that good. The power button is in a really weird place. It's made of plastic. It kind of has this crackling sound when you're holding it and squeezing the plastic. It does feel really cheap. For me personally, I really enjoy paying for that extra premium feel. My Kindle is a device that I use every single day. I want to have a device that I'm excited to use. When I got the Clara HD, I really did not enjoy using it because it didn't feel nice to hold. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Right now on the screen, you'll see that video I was talking about comparing the Kindle and the Kobo ecosystem in terms of software. Check that video out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.